Okay, everybody, it is time for the Friday show. I'm Johnny Rolla, Brett Erlich, the acclaimed and famed host of Happy Half Hours here.
Oh my God, if you like John Idarola and you like the Happy Half Hour, you're gonna be so happy this week when John Idarola joins the Happy Half Hour.
Later today.
Yeah, later today. We already shot it, which is why you're so hungover.
A little, I guess.
Are you really?
No, not
we
at
didn't
all.
Drink enough.
No, I didn't drink much, but the drinks were delicious and the conversation was just as tasty.
My favorite part about your opening music is this part.
That's the a cappella version of it, I guess.
There's a part where the clapping happens and it reminds me of that guy who's the fastest clapper.
I have not seen that, but perhaps on a future episode of Happy Half Hour. Okay, we've got through the clapping stuff and now the politics. So we've got a lot we're gonna be talking about.
Now the metaphorical clap that America has and needs to treat with antibiotics.
We need to make it more metaphorical because it still sounds like we're talking about clapping. So we're gonna be talking about Nancy Pelosi. We've got more later on. So is the country ready for two things? Elizabeth Warren and socialism. We've got some polls for you. That's coming later on. It's coming up later on. Eventually we're gonna hit the right version of that. Bernie Sanders too has been criticized for not prioritizing foreign policy in his political talk, and he's got a new video coming out defending his record on that topic. We'll be going through that. Two awesome guests. We're gonna be talking about corruption. We're gonna be talking about fundraising and also more corruption. We've got tons of stuff, but I'm really excited for this first block, so let's launch into it. Over the past 24 hours, multiple doctored videos of Nancy Pelosi edited to make it look like she is drunk or falling apart mentally have been spread. Some of them have been literally manipulated to give that impression. Some have been selectively edited to give that impression. And just coincidentally, they've been all spread all over the place on conservative social media, on Facebook and Twitter, by the president himself, and on Fox Business as well. So I wanna give you an idea of what's going around. Here is the first version. This has been actually manipulated and slowed down to make her look drunk.
We want to give this president the opportunity to do something historic for our country. We want to give this president the opportunity to do something historic for our country.
So you see there, Washington Post mashed up the version that's being spread around on Facebook by a politics watchdog, which begs the question, who watches the watchers when they're manipulating videos to attack Nancy Pelosi? And then the actual version. So what they did was they appear to have slowed it down to 75% of its original speed, manipulated the pitch so that her voice doesn't sound even more ridiculous than it does once they get done with their editing. And that is now being spread around. In fact, by Rudy Giuliani, in fact, the president's lawyer, tweeted that out and then deleted it very quickly when it became apparent that was not an authentic video.
If you want to use these powers for good and see the power of like slowing down a video for effect used for good, there's a guy named Huell Hauser who produced all these, a thing called California's Gold, and he would just show up and be like, wow, that's amazing. How do you make that toffee? And someone slowed that down where he's like, wow. Toffee's great. That's what you should be doing with slowed down video. Maybe seeing if they got the call right. This is just juvenile and stupid. And what's frustrating to me is that this happened right in the wake of Trump getting utterly owned by Nancy Pelosi. So what's his logic here? That the person who owned me is an idiot? What does that make you do?
Yes. Yeah, and by the way, I don't necessarily share the same that she owned him. I guess I don't really care.
She did.
I'm obviously not. Yeah, I suppose I don't. Really care about that back and forth.
At C-SPAN on the main show yesterday. JR pulled all the clips of Trump saying, "I was calm, wasn't I? Wasn't I calm? Hey, Sarah Sanders, wasn't I calm?" And she comes and goes, yeah. Kellyanne Conway, was I calm? You were super calm, sir. Right, I am calm.
Yeah.
He's getting worked.
Yes, she is very good at getting under his skin. I will grant you that.
If you're owned by someone who can't put a sentence together by your doctored video, that makes you someone dumber than someone who can't put a sentence together.
That is true, and that is why I think that these have all come out. Like, I don't believe that many of his fans are like, oh, Trump got owned, Nancy Pelosi notched a win. I don't think that they accept that. It just flows, around them like a babbling brook. But they do want to strike back, and this is how you do it. And so they had the two different versions. They have this where it's literally manipulated. And by the way, that video, so we mentioned Politics Watchdog, which is a conservative Facebook page that has so little respect for its viewers that it literally manipulates videos before sharing them. That video, as of like last night, had 2 million views, had been shared more than 45,000 times. That's far higher now. And it's gonna keep going up, by the way, because Facebook has said it's only gonna downgrade its visibility. It won't actually remove this obviously fraudulent, like you can show in editing software how it's been slowed down. And we've had other examples of that as well. And this is, I think, a great example of people's frustration with Facebook, where they keep saying, oh no, we're totally taking fake news seriously. Are we gonna do anything about this obvious example of it? No, we're gonna reduce its visibility a little bit, but they still got their millions of views. The people who watched it and spread it, they believe that it was true. Even after we know that it's not, they still believe that it was true. That is what is so pernicious about this sort of behavior.
I don't think that statement is necessarily true. I don't think people actually believe it or don't. There are a good number of people who believe it. What are you gonna do with them? Exactly what we're doing now is pointing out how it's false. That's all you can do. Put pressure on Facebook to reduce its visibility or take it down. But I think there's another group of people who will say it's true, who don't believe it's true. They just want to win.
They don't care if it's true or not. Okay, yeah. I guess in that case, I'm using believe a little bit loosely. It's to the extent that they believe things politically, they believe it, but they don't really believe things based on evidence.
Right, and I think those people are more likely to give up. Like the blind people who believe and follow Trump are lost. But the ones who kind of forward it because they think they're winning this awesome bully fight, those people are more likely to give up if you're just like, dude, you lost. I'm sorry, you just lost. Like this proves that you absolutely lost in every way.
So in response to that video, Pelosi's Deputy Chief of Staff, Drew Hamill, said, we're not going to comment on this sexist trash, which Brooke pointed out, that's a comment. That is you commenting on it, and perhaps understandably so. So there was that. At the same time, you had Trump tweeted a separate video of Pelosi, selectively edited supercut taken from Fox News, focusing on moments where she briefly paused or stumbled. The clip is about 30 seconds of a 21-minute briefing. Here's a section of that was played on Fox.
We had a little took a little longer on the floor. Custody of the border. Everyone, they started sending signals, the US, Mexico, Canada, if that's not the accurate category. Some people call it after NAFTA, some call it NAFTA 2.0, working together to make past that. Not if we're the three things. We're very busy people.
Okay, all of what you saw there was what was played on Fox, including the repetition and stuff like that. So they took a 21-minute video, they cut it down to less than 30 seconds of what they thought made her look ridiculous and then discussed it. At the same time, this is like less than an hour after Fox News was saying, hey, by the way, there's some fake doctored video going around. Now that isn't doctored by one definition of the term, but there's been some surgery applied to it at the very least.
When they say doctor, like the doctors take a Hippocratic oath to do no harm. This is not doctored video. This is like back alley doctor.
It's mutilated.
This is mutilated, like yes. Those kinds of people who were doctors and then became serial killers type activity.
So they're very effective.
This is Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs, skin sewing lady dress.
The clips in the back. Yeah, on its skin. Yes, and so both of those are going around. And the last takeaway for me on this particular part is we're worried about deep fakes, right? So a video is going to come out during this presidential election that is 100% fake, and you're gonna look at it and you're not gonna know. And it's gonna be spread hundreds of thousands of times, and it's gonna matter in the election. We're waiting for that. I just saw a video of Bill Hader on Conan O'Brien, and he's doing an Arnold Schwarzenegger impression. And as the intensity of his impression goes up and down through the interview, they make his face Arnold Schwarzenegger or not. And it is trippy because it looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger on Bill Hader's body. You can't tell the difference. And so the technology is getting really effective. But honestly, who cares? You don't need that sort of technology. Just slow stuff down a little bit. Clip out a little bit from the middle of it. Laura Ingraham had a video of Ilhan Omar where she was selectively cutting out individual phrases from an address to make it look like she was attacking Christians. Like, I don't think that we need the tech apocalypse. We're already there.
To make Ilhan Omar look like she was attacking Christians when she was just attacking Christians who don't live a Christian life.
Yes.
And then basically all the ones who said like, I'm against abortion, but I'm gonna have my lover that I impregnated get an abortion. Like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, the sort of hypocrisy that I would imagine Jesus wasn't a big fan of.
No, he was. That's the thing.
Yeah.
He had a whole stash of hypocrisy hidden. Yeah, especially when he was a teenager.
And just super fast, so Rudy Giuliani, he tweeted the doctor video. I want to jump ahead to his last tweet. He tweeted this, and I don't know if this is some sort of surreal new age art or something, but his apology tweet was, Yvesse's apology for a video which is allegedly is a caricature of an otherwise halting speech pattern. She should first stop and apologize for saying the president needs an intervention and then a gif of people playing basketball or cheering on the sidelines. Was I just owned? I don't understand what is going on here. Anyway,
this is
the attack continues.
Potentially the most meta response. Is he trying to simulate lack of acumen?
I think so. We've listened to him before. He does that pretty naturally. Anyway, okay, so I do want to turn to a related topic though. So all these videos of Nancy Pelosi are going around doctored, selectively edited to make her look ridiculous. The thing is, we have got politicians that you don't need to really carefully edit to make them look ridiculous. But if you want to, you can. There's a million different ways we can go about this. I saw one video that was shared by Ryan Hill MI on Twitter, and it's of Trump, and it's a doozy. Have some fun.
Bing, bing. I love it. I love it. I'm sitting there tweeting, bing, bing, bing. You press a button, bing, bing. They all hand you checks, bing, 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 bing. We had our beautiful Marine standing there, bing, 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 bing. You know, in the old days, bing, bong. You know, with the map, bing, bing, bing. Little mouth on him, bing, 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 bing. Bing, 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 they're cleaning up. Fix it up, bing, bing, bing. A 14-point plan, bing, bing, bing. Anthony Weiner, you know, the little bing, bing, bing. Everyone's attacked me has gone bing. Everyone else, bing. Where have they gone? Bing. Wow, what a tackle. Bing. Playing cards, bing, bing, bing. Those tunnels, bing, boom, right under the toilet. Bing, boom, right up. Bing, like a rocket ship, except in the wrong direction. I'd fly over, drop them right on top. You know, just bing. They want me to use the pump. Because the other one, which I really like better than going bing, bing, bing. It's like puppets. Bing, 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 bong, bong, bing, bing, bing. The bing, bing, bang, bang, boom. I was imitating puppets, and I said, maybe I shouldn't do that anymore.
I don't know what that was. I loved it so much more this time. If I was to make puppet sounds, I'd do 100 before I hit bing.
Bing, boom. I can't believe, because sometimes bing is a good thing, and sometimes bing is terrible. Why pick a bing? Is he?
Oh, Jesus.
It was a bad day. It was a real bing day.
Oh, God. It was the best bing of my life. Anyway, so that makes him look a little bit funny. I want to go just a little bit longer because that's funny, but they were attacking Nancy Pelosi, implying that she's falling apart through this video. Here's the thing, Donald Trump has appeared to fall apart on video quite a bit, and I wanna show you a section. This is from January of 2017. Here he is talking about Rudy Giuliani and then looking for Rudy Giuliani.
And Rudy's very much of an expert on cybersecurity. It's been a very important thing to him and to what he does, and maybe I'll ask Rudy to say a few words.
Well, thank you very, very much, Mr. President. First of all, congratulations on what is in fact a historic start of an administration. I've never seen so much done in so short a period of time.
That was Rudy. He was across the street.
He was
across
directly across the table from him. He said, "Where's Brett?
Where are the cameras?
Where is Brett?
Where are the cameras? Hi."
You should go to the doctor after that.
He's not a smart man.
He had been sitting across the table from him for a minimum 15 minutes at that point.
I love the stable genius comment that came on the heels of all these other people being idiots. Stable Genius sounds like a barn renovation show on HGTV.
How embarrassed would you be? It should be like, okay, I want to talk about Brett. Brett's a great guy. Brett's a great producer. Where is he? Bing. You see him.
Bing.
It's quick.
Bing and decide.
Anyway, we live in
I love that search engine on the internet. What's it called? Bing, 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 Google.
Okay, we got a lot more coming up for you. We're gonna take a short break. We come back, a guest is gonna join us. Some political corruption, should be fun.
Bing.
We need to talk about a relatively new show called the Republic, or UNFTR.
As a Young Turks fan, you already know that the government, the media, and corporations are constantly peddling lies that serve the interests of the rich and powerful. But now there's a podcast dedicated to unraveling those lies, debunking the conventional wisdom. In each episode of On the Republic, or UNFTR, the host delves into a different historical episode or topic that's generally misunderstood or purposely obfuscated by the so-called powers that be, featuring in-depth research, razor-sharp commentary, and just the right amount of vulgarity. The UNFTR podcast takes a sledgehammer to what you thought you knew about some of the nation's most sacred historical cows. But don't just take my word for it. The New York Times described UNFTR as consistently compelling and educational, aiming to challenge conventional wisdom and upend the historical narratives that were taught in school. For as the great philosopher Yoda once put it, "You must unlearn what you have learned." And that's true whether you're in Jedi training or you're uprooting and exposing all the propaganda and disinformation you've been fed over the course of your lifetime. So search for UNFTR in your podcast app today and get ready to get informed, angered, and entertained all at the same time.
Over the past 2 years or so, there's been serious concern that the Donald Trump organization and Donald Trump individually might be profiting from him being the president. We've got a potential case of that I want to delve into. And reporting on that was Derek Kravitz, a journalist at ProPublica, who joins us now on the Damage Report. Welcome to the show.
Hi, John. How are you?
I'm doing well, and I was very interested in your piece breaking down a case where it appears that the taxpayers have paid Trump properties for an expensive party, sort of, for Donald Trump. Can you give us the details on that?
Sure. So every time President Trump visits Mar-A-Lago, obviously a lot of staff, a lot of equipment, a lot of security goes with him, and that's being paid for by the federal government. And in order to make sure that he has everything he needs when he's doing a diplomatic state visit from an outside foreign leader, there's a lot more personnel needed. And so we got a hold of receipts and emails and information that showed how much actually the taxpayers are paying in order to make sure President Trump can host people at Mar-a-Lago and basically have all of the trappings of the presidency at his winter White House. The problem with that, obviously, is this money goes to Mar-a-Lago, which in essence is a business that the prime beneficiary is President Trump himself. So that's where the conflict is.
And so let's talk about amounts. I mean, you've got a particular case that you highlight in your article. Maybe we can learn a little bit more about that. But then overall, what are the sorts of amounts of money that we're talking about over the course of 2+ years of the Trump presidency?
So we're definitely talking millions that are being spent by various federal agencies, including Secret Service, Department of Homeland Security, the State Department. But what we don't know is how much the White House is spending. The White House is not subject to the Freedom of Information Act, so we can't find information out that way. And obviously, they're not voluntarily disclosing how much money they're spending. So we suspect it's many multiples above tens of millions, but we don't know the full amount. What we do know is that every time State Department officials go there, they're spending $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 per night on not just hotel rooms for their staff, but also banquet rooms and dinners and other things that federal staffers are entitled to when they're traveling with the president and traveling on official business. So that's the open question, is actually how much money is being spent.
And one of the interesting things that you talked about in your piece had to do with an attempt by the State Department to try to streamline this process and make it so that they weren't necessarily in the next few years spending quite so much money, but that was actually rejected by the Trump administration. What did that look like?
So in the federal procurement process, there's a contract that a federal agency can make with a hotel. In this case, it's called a blanket purchase agreement. So they tried to, essentially have Mar-a-Lago sign this contract for $200,000 over 4 years of the first term of Trump's presidency. The Mar-a-Lago said no. They said that there were too many issues with federal procurement rules and issues regarding competitive bidding. And they didn't want to go down that road and didn't want to run afoul of those federal rules. So they rejected the government's contract. So to get around that, the State Department had to create a new travel card, a new credit card through Citibank. And they passed that credit card around to staffers who are traveling to Mar-a-Lago. And it's essentially a credit card only for Mar-a-Lago. And it is pretty unique. It's unusual that the federal government does this. And so because of that, there's a lot of issues that pop up, including how much money is being spent and if the amount of money that they're spending is in accordance with federal rules.
Do we know, I know that your piece was focused on the Trump presidency, but do we know of any past examples of this under other presidents where any businesses that they might have owned were being sort of constantly used, in cases sometimes with gigantic sums of money that they could personally profit from?
There's no precedent for this. I mean, any ethics lawyer working under both Republican and Democratic administrations will say that even the case studies that are brought up as far as presidential conflicts of interest, Jimmy Carter and his peanut farm, FDR and his wife's radio stations that received federal funding, they pale in comparison to President Trump's businesses, which are in essence in a trust, but that trust then is for the exclusive benefit of President Trump. So there's no comparison in that sense. There is a fair amount of wealthy people that have served in government positions, but almost all of them have somehow set up a blind trust or recused themselves in a way where their financial interests aren't as apparent when they're traveling or when they're doing business on behalf of the government. So Penny Pritzker comes to mind. She was a Commerce Secretary under Obama. Obviously, there's several wealthy cabinet members in the Trump administration, but he's in a league of his own.
That certainly appears to be the case. And Derek Kravitz, we appreciate your work in this area and for joining us today.
Thank you.
We're gonna take a short break. When we come back, we're gonna be breaking down Elizabeth Warren rising in the polls. Where does she go from here? We'll talk about that after this. So week after week, Elizabeth Warren would come out with one proposal after another, and huge areas that need massive improvement in American politics, and it didn't seem to be doing anything for her. She was still sort of languishing in the polls in 5th or 6th or 7th place, and we would complain about it here. Why does nobody care that she's taking this so seriously? And then it became sort of a meme and certainly a narrative in the Democratic primary, the she's got a plan for it thing. And now it looks like maybe it's working. And so we're gonna be talking about that, Brett. But first, I wanna debut the most indecipherable chart that we've ever showed on the show. If you're on the podcast, that's actually a benefit because you don't have to try to analyze this. So let's take a look at this. It's the Real Clear Politics rolling average of all of the candidacies.
Way to pitch this. Way to get people excited about this chart.
It doesn't mean anything. But so, okay, on top you've got Biden. He finally announced and he shot up and now he's been sort of going down. In blue, you've got Bernie Sanders, who dipped a little bit, then rose back and then dipped a little bit, but we're talking about like a percentage point. And you are not gonna be able to find the brown bar, but it is Elizabeth Warren, and she has moved up over the past month or so from averaging around 5.8 to 6% in the polls up to about a 10%. That puts her comfortably ahead of Kamala Harris and Pete Buttigieg. And so in whatever language you wanna say it, she's now in 3rd place. And perhaps this is a trend that will continue. What do you think?
Well, I think she's definitely not only rising to become the most likely candidate for president, but for Empress of the Earth. I'm just saying that it was started going up there. I think Elizabeth Warren's challenges are not that she is a bad with policy or anything. It's just that when she gets onto a stage as a candidate and you have all the performative aspects of it to deal with, she just doesn't. With America as I know, and I hate saying this, but like America as I know it, which has a lot of people that won't vote for a woman, she's not the kind of woman they would vote for. I don't know how to, I don't endorse that behavior or that activity. I just don't see them looking at Elizabeth Warren and saying, leader, go get Iran now.
So, okay, interesting. And I understand a lot of people feel that.
Yeah, I don't endorse that behavior by any means, but that's my appraisal of it.
It's just the first thought that you have baked into your bones.
Yeah.
When you think about politics, yes. Okay, so
keeping men on top. Which, if you want to hear that.
Couple possible counterpoints. In terms of leadership, she did start to rise pretty shortly. There's multiple variables, but pretty shortly after she was, I think, the first to come out and say that President Trump should be impeached. She was in a town hall and she gave a very passionate sort of denunciation of Donald Trump and the criminal acts and all that. And she started to go up. I mean, is that a version of leadership that perhaps she could continue?
No. It's just not in her. It's just she doesn't have that presence.
That town hall, did you watch that town hall?
Yeah.
I thought she was pretty good.
Yeah, but no.
She was more personable.
And then you could look at the people who are going down as she's going up, and those are Biden, maybe, but also but Biden gets a bump. It's tough. Here's my full appraisal of the situation. Biden got a bump because he's in. There's a bump that happens. Then it starts to fade and people start to equalize. Also, at this time in the process, the question is, whose name do you know? And the names you know, you're getting more coverage of Elizabeth Warren because of people like us saying, she writes policies. Everyone's like, yeah, but what are you gonna do about it? And you could just ask Elizabeth Warren. She'll be like, here, I did this. I literally did this in my sleep. That's how I can write policies and come up with ones that are smart and work. And your move now. So I think the strategy it's just my personal belief.
Well, to be clear, you're saying that you don't think that is what is driving her rising the polls. It's just the coverage because of that.
Yeah, which I think
depressing.
No. I think that's do more of that. Incorporate more of that. People get louder about how she has the policy because that is what folks latch onto, and it's either that or go do 23andMe again, and that's a bad idea.
You could try.
But this is the thing that works. Do more of that. Have more policies. Just flood people with policy after policy, where it's like we're going through, and then just remind people of the policy. Also, do more videos with AOC to raise your level, because you see Bernie's going down at a time when Elizabeth Warren's going up. The question is, are they just exchanging people at this point? As open-minded progressives are like, I like her. Oh, that's a progressive candidate. Oh, I like him. That's a progressive candidate. I'm really excited right now.
Maybe. I mean, you do have some other people going down. So Beto has dipped. Some of that support appears like maybe it had gone to Buttigieg, but maybe some of it went to her. There are still undecided voters who might be sort of vacillating.
Too, but hers is an overall upward trend, which is great.
Yes.
Which is great for her.
And overall, like her favorability ratings in the Democratic Party are 57 to 16 in a Morning Consult tracking poll. There's still 28% of Democrats who say they haven't heard enough about her to form an opinion, whereas the two people in front of her, Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders, only have 8% who are still sort of ostensibly open-minded. She has more room for growth. So I guess the final question would be, if you were Bernie Sanders, would you be worried right now? Not necessarily just about Biden, but about Elizabeth Warren specifically.
Question. Why? Would you be worried?
Well, you just said that you think there's a possibility that they might be trading voters.
I just don't think he's the type, right, to be worried. Like, that's not a setting he goes to.
Input a different word other than worried.
Would your strategist,
would you factor this into
should a strategist on the team be worried?
Yes.
I don't think they should be worried. They probably are worried, but I don't think they should be. I think the things that will get Bernie to the top, similar to the things that have propelled Elizabeth in this specific upward tick, are to focus on policy. Being worried is going to distract you from being able to focus on policy. So just go to those things that you're each going to continue to do. You're each going to get moments in the news cycle, like we're about to cover with Bernie later in the show, where you get to get back in the news and people are reminded who you are. I think all of this is very preliminary, and I think once you get a debate season going, you see people on a stage together. That's what closes gaps fastest.
I disagree. I think that this fluctuation's it.
Okay.
And this is just determine the whole thing.
I've been right once on this
I think we're good. I think we can. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's turn to one more poll. We only have a couple minutes, but I want to talk about this briefly. New poll showing that more and more Americans might not think socialism is such a bad thing. Really interested to hear what you think about this, but here's the results. Gallup survey found that 43% of Americans believe that some sort of socialism would be good for the country compared, while 51% said it would be bad. So still more than a majority saying bad. 43% saying some form would be good. I think that the joke is that we already have some form.
This is more of a, when BuzzFeed has those quiz like how well do you know your country? This is that. Where it's like, would socialism be good? No. Well, funny, ha ha ha. When you click your answer, it says wrong. You have socialism in the fire department and Medicare and Social Security.
And to compare, I think it's very important generally that when you get polling results, you want to compare it to how much change there has been in an 80-year period. So the results revealed an 18% rise in the number of people warming to socialism compared with a 1942 Roper Fortune poll described by Gallup as one of the oldest trend questions measuring attitudes on socialism in the US. Thank you, Gallup, for your historical focus. I don't know that matters necessarily.
That's insane.
But the reason I think this is interesting is at the same, you have two people talking about socialism, or two groups talking about socialism. You have democratic socialists who are defending the application of democratic socialism to America, and you have Donald Trump and Fox News attacking it viciously. I think that both might be leading to this result. That if Trump says, I hate X, I think that a lot of Americans are gonna be a little bit more favorable towards X.
Yes, I agree. I think using the word socialism at all is dumb. Using the word capitalism at all is dumb. I think corruption is the word you should use at all times, because the things that capitalists actually hate about socialist societies forever is the corruption in them. And the thing that socialists hate in capitalist societies since forever is the corruption in them. The truth is, like, there are aspects of those philosophies at work. Using either of those philosophies just by themselves is like having a one-letter password. Someone's gonna crack it and mess the whole system up.
Yeah, and as you say, I mean, with both of those terms, socialism and capitalism, you could reasonably mean many different things, and virtually no one, when they use the term, actually says what they mean.
Yes.
And just bear in mind that they called Barack Obama a radical socialist. So when a Fox News personality says, I'm opposed to socialism, do you have any idea what that means specifically?
It's like fake news, it's like, I don't know, orgasm, like no one's saying the same thing. Everyone's faking it.
I think, okay.
I don't know.
Bing. Okay, we're gonna take a short break. When we come back, another guest joining us. We'll be back after this. Across the country and across the past couple of years, we've seen more and more candidates changing the way that they're fundraising for their campaigns, abstaining from taking corporate PAC money, not trying to do like massive fundraisers. Elizabeth Warren is a great example of that. Not every candidate necessarily is doing things in new ways. There's still a lot of traditional, old school political fundraising. And I wanna get into that with a particular case having to do with Representative Richard Neal. And joining us now to break down this aspect of fundraising is author and journalist David Daley. David, welcome to the Damage Report.
A pleasure to be here, thank you.
Glad to have you here. So let's talk about the new fundraising report that was revealed for Representative Neal. What are some of your main takeaways from it?
What's amazing about this is that the congressman is the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee. So that's the most powerful tax writing committee in the House of Representatives. And so what you see in his FEC report is that the most powerful entrenched corporations in the country have lined up to give him hundreds of thousands of dollars, but also that Neal is spending hundreds of thousands of dollars in order to raise this money. So the congressman spent the first 3 months of the year essentially crisscrossing America from wine country to South Beach food festivals, where he stayed at the Ritz-Carlton, to a tour of Manhattan, to a weekend on Cape Cod, a weekend in Boston, $2,500, $5,000 a pop for these lobbyists to join him in private settings in which they are wined and dined, and nobody pays for a thing except for the American people, who get stuck with the bill as the congressman manipulates the tax code to benefit these corporations who are funding him.
And I know the audience is probably thinking that these are just groupies for Representative Neal, but it turns out that you've actually identified some aspects of of the writing of policy in the near future that could benefit some of these industries. Can you tell us specifically about Representative Neal and H&R Block?
Oh, it's an amazing story. So one of the main corporate policies that H&R Block has wanted forever, and also TurboTax, which is owned by a company called Intuit, is they have wanted to keep the IRS out of the business of offering a free file system to the American people. So 36 countries around the world, you can file your taxes for free and the government sends you the forms with all of your information already filled in. Because, I mean, let's face it, if they already have our 1099s, our W-2s, it would be really easy for them simply to send us this. So TurboTax and H&R Block have tried to keep the government out of the free file system for years. About a dozen years ago, they succeeded in setting up a free file system in which if you make under $66,000 a year, you can file through TurboTax or H&R Block for free. The trouble is they don't tell you that this exists. Only 3% of Americans who are eligible for this even know that it is possible. TurboTax and H&R Block go out of their way to hide this. They actually have script on their website and they've bought ads on Google that if you search for TurboTax free file, it takes you to a TurboTax paid page. So they've done everything that they can do to keep this a secret and then to charge you or to upsell you into paid products if you do figure out that it exists. So Elizabeth Warren, even the IRS's own public advocate, all kinds of consumer groups have said that this program is an absolute failure. What Richard Neal and the Ways and Means Committee have done is they've codified this program into law. Back in March and in April, when Ways and Means was marking up something that they gave the Orwellian title of the Taxpayer First Act to, they snuck something in there that says that the IRS is permanently prohibited from setting up a free file system. This is the #1 giveaway that H&R Block and TurboTax could have ever wanted. Neal gave it to them. Oh, and by the way, H&R Block and TurboTax give Neal tens of thousands of dollars.
So that, as you pointed out, is a fascinating case study. There are others available in your piece, which I believe is available on the Boston Globe, correct?
Yes, it is. It's in the Boston Globe.
And so there's other examples there. And the fascinating thing is that like we focus on sort of illegal corruption or arguably illegal corruption, but all of this is 100% legal, correct?
I think that's right. I think that it's the legal corruption that is the real problem in Washington. Neal takes tens of thousands of dollars from these companies and then he does their bidding. The New York Times just had a report on the 30 companies in this country that make the most money and yet not only don't pay any federal income taxes, but that they got a refund. Mm-hmm. Well, Neal in 2018 took money from 17 of those 30 companies, which means that when Amazon gives him $9,800, that $9,800 is more than Amazon is paying for roads or clean air or the national defense. It is insane. This is legal corruption. It's pay-to-play politics and it has to stop.
And by the way, it's a reminder that it is not just on one side of the aisle, that this sort of behavior can come when you get a new Congress. It doesn't necessarily mean that things are gonna fundamentally change. David Daley, author and journalist, thank you so much for joining us today.
A pleasure, thank you.
We're gonna take a short break here. When we come back, Bernie Sanders has a new video defending his record in foreign policy. We'll break that down after this. Just a couple of days ago, I noticed a tweet that Meet the Press sent out, and let's take a look at it. It says, Bernie Sanders said he won't apologize for supporting anti-Vietnam War efforts and voting against the war in Iraq. Quote, I will do everything I can to see problems solved diplomatically instead of through war. And as you can probably tell from the numbers there, it doesn't have the replies listed. A lot of people didn't really understand what this was trying to say. The idea that one would have to apologize for being against the Vietnam War or thinking that the Iraq War would end up being an interminable quagmire is a weird take.
But that's yes, it is vague language, because I will say I'm not gonna apologize for being awesome. That's one way to say won't apologize for. But Meet the Press, who is full of people who are supposed to be good at word choice, also opened you up for the possibility of understanding this guy still won't apologize for how terrible he was. But no one, that's one of those that you read and you're just like, this is a horribly worded tweet.
So you think that might not be what they meant, it's just poorly worded?
I think it's either, there's three options, and if your job is to write tweets,
you shouldn't leave
and you're
people
good
with three
at
options.
You should either, to get more clicks, leave it open to three options, or be better and not leave it open to those many options.
Well, I don't know for sure that this is what he was responding to, but Bernie Sanders did just put out a new video talking about his past choices and decisions when it comes to foreign policy, sort of referencing this sort of thing. And here's what he had to say.
Recently, I've been criticized a bit because of my opposition to war and my belief that we got to do everything possible to solve international conflict without going to war. So let me be very clear. I make no apologies to anybody that when I was a young man, before I was elected to anything, I opposed the war in Vietnam, and I know what that war did to my generation. And when I was a member of the House, I helped lead the effort against the war in Iraq, because I knew that Cheney and Bush and these other folks were lying about weapons of mass destruction.
I'm opposed to giving the president a blank check to launch a unilateral invasion and occupation of Iraq, and why I will vote against this resolution.
And that war and that vote was the worst foreign policy blunder in the modern history of the United States. And as a senator, I'm proud that I helped for the first time in 45 years to utilize the War Powers Act to get the United States out of an unauthorized war in Yemen. Unfortunately, after passing in the House and the Senate, Trump vetoed that legislation. And I'll tell you something, that right now, I'm going to do everything that I can to prevent a war with Iran. Because if you think the war in Iraq was a disaster, my guess is that the war in Iran would be even worse. So let's work together and prevent that war. If people want to criticize me for that, go for it, that's okay. I don't apologize to anybody. Thank you.
I want to have an awesome catchphrase that when I say it, the words appear on the screen in front of me.
That's Viral Video Film School, youtube.com/viral videos, that's all I did.
Yeah, he's 100% right. I mean, why it matters. Some people like their stance on old stuff that you've done is, what do we care about that ancient history, I guess. Usually that's as a defense for Joe Biden. I feel like if I am worried that you might not be authentic when it comes to being anti-war, for instance, and that when the pressure is on you as president, you would get us into another military blunder, I wanna see that you have opposed it in the past, even when it was dangerous to do so politically, and he is establishing that.
It's just like, do I get any credit for being right all the time?
Like, I'd be frustrated if I were him.
He's been right. Does he get anything for it? What does he have to show for being right about this stuff? Also, what he says is like, we decided to use the War Powers Act. What? That's the Congress. Congress should be in charge, and constitutionally is in charge of war stuff. President's
but it took an effort to remind them that, first of all, you have the constitutional authority, and we passed the War Powers Act because they were like, oh, people aren't paying attention to that Constitution thing. We need something shiny.
How flown the coop has been. That's where we're at in this conversation. And I just, someone's got to say it. How about the beats, by the way?
Yeah, the beat was. If I had
the whole control room, Craig is like doing dancing. The Craig dance.
I think it's nice when a politician chooses their own beat. I think that was authentically Bernie there.
Yeah.
If he had started dancing there, I would have lost it. It would have been awesome, but it didn't happen.
He just drops a mic after.
We can't necessarily have a president who can dance in a hallway while talking about foreign policy, but we do have a president, or theoretically one, who can speak to fears that we have right now about a future war with Iran.
I just want to say back to this Meet the Press tweet, and I'm rethinking my stance on all of it. There was a time when if they were teaching you to write, they would teach you a certain way, and that would be, this is ambiguous. But now when they teach you to write, they teach you to write this way. Leave it up to as many interpretations that drive clicks as possible, and that's a real shame.
Yeah,
or is it? Exactly. Go see Booksmart this weekend, everyone. Booksmart, written by Sarah Haskins, an old friend of mine. I remember when she sold it 10 years ago. It's finally getting made. Go see Booksmart.
Very good reviews. And I just want to read, I've been telling people to rate and review the podcast on iTunes. We've gotten some good ones. Farrell Jane wrote in a 5-star review, thank you, saying, John is thorough in his research, entertaining and eloquent. His explanations on the why of things are top notch. And his co-hosts are great too, especially love Brooke and JR. There are other ones about you, don't worry. There are ones about you, but I knew that Brooke would be fuming at the fact that I was reading something positive about me, so I wanted to include her too. I heard her there. Wow. Anyway, thank you everybody for watching throughout the week. Big 3-day weekend coming up, but we will be back next Tuesday with lots more content for you. Thank you, Brett, for joining us.
Thank you.
We'll see you next week. Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Damage Report. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, John Adarola. I'll see you soon.